Got a new toy. Check out this bad boy. It's a Thorne wax melter, 25 gallon. Got it out here in my shed. I took a pallet and I put some casters on the bottom of it so we can roll this thing around. What we have here, we have a double valve system. Got a 25 gallon double jacketed tank right here. Water's all the way to the top. It took 17 gallons to fill it up, but I used distilled water. Got a valve up here kind of high on the tank and one down low. Temperature gauge, I need to tighten that in. We have the heating element right here with the thermostat on it. And on the back, we have the drain valve. I put water in here up to this point, just below this point right here. So all the slumgum and honey can go down into the water. And then up here, of course, I filled it up the rest of the way with wax. There aren't a lot of videos on the Thorne wax melter, so I thought I'd do one for you. First time using it, hope I'm doing it right. We're gonna find out. Okay, it's been about 4 or 5 hours. Let's go in here and see how it's looking. Oh, it says it's only 100 degrees, so I don't have it turned up hot enough. Well, I don't know why it's not hotter. It's been a few days. Jed at Thorne Manufacturing sent me a new heater, and so I had to drain the water out of this thing and put the new heater in, and now it seems to be working pretty well. Something I did this morning is I bought this 12 gauge cord. The cord I had it plugged up to was getting hot, and we don't have power to the shed right now, so this thing seems to be working really good now. I've got it set on 175, but you can see the actual temperature is about 160 according to the thermometer. So I might need to go up a little bit actually on the thermostat over there for the heater, but we'll play with that. But the good news is it's melting. It's floating on top of the melted wax and water and everything underneath. So I got it working and doing its thing. All right, it's the next morning and the wax is melted. So now we have slum gum on the top. It's my first time doing this. We'll do a practice run now, and then on the second batch, maybe I'll know what I'm doing. I put water up to about right here initially, and so we had the wax in here, the wax cappings. So theoretically, all the honey that was in the wax cappings, anything left over and would have just dropped to the bottom. There's probably also some slum gum and waste down below. The actual wax, pure wax level has probably raised up to about this level right here, I'm thinking. I don't know for sure, it's my first time doing this, and that is very hot. So the idea is I'm gonna drain the honey and any waste that might be underneath the honey here until we start seeing pure, perfectly pure, clean wax. And so for first time ever doing this, let's see what happens. A little test that someone told me you can do is you can take a hive tool and see that's just honey. It's not drying on there at all, so we still need to do more. I think it's going to be really pretty and yellow when it starts dripping wax out. It's pretty dirty. All right. Now we're starting to get into some wax. We're getting close, I think. Yeah. Just set this off to the side. Like this. Flip the bucket upside down, and this is what we're going to use for our molds, hopefully. Okay, so I've got a strainer here. I think this is called flour sack cloth. And we're just going to run it in here and see what happens. Just real slow. Still got a fair amount of dirt, but the wax that's going to come through here is going to be perfectly clean. Okay, that's pretty slow. I think once we get past the level of the dirt, the wax will be perfectly clean and we may not even need the cloth anymore. You can use muslin, you can use cheesecloth. I saw this in the Bob Benny video. That's one reason I use it. It seemed to work well for him. I'm going to take it up to about this mark right here. I think that's going to be around 5 pounds. Now here's our first block. There's a little layer of honey underneath, which will be okay. If you can see right here, see how it's separating? Wax on top, honey beneath. So I think I'm going to get a new piece of cloth, and then we're going to start the next one. Hopefully it'll be pure wax. Okay, now for round 2, let's see if this one's gonna be a little bit easier, a little bit cleaner. Here we go. Still a little bit of dirt in it. Yeah, I think we're getting into the much cleaner wax now though, which is what you want. So if you look in here, we've got probably about that much wax, which is gonna be a fair amount, I think. We'll see. Okay, we got 4 nice blocks over there. For some reason, we have all kinds of bees in here joining us. I'm not sure what the deal is with that, but I don't have any hives in the backyard, so they've got to just be feral bees from somewhere out there in the woods, unless somebody else has beehives here in the neighborhood. But I think we finally got down to the pretty clean wax. Let's see how it looks when I open it up this time. Yeah, it's pretty much pure now, I think. Look how pretty that is. But yeah, I think that wax is perfectly clean now. I see a couple of flecks in the cloth in here. See them right there? There we go. Now it's draining pretty quickly. So I don't know how much one of these blocks will weigh, but I'm going up to about this mark right here. About 5 pounds or so per block is about all I want. I may actually look into making some candles. I've never done that before, but now that we got all this wax, maybe it'll be a good thing to do. There's some more dirt. Oh gosh, there's some more dirt. Maybe it's just a good idea to use this thing. Well, this is what we ended up with on our first pour. I'm not sure how much this is. I don't know exactly how much each one of these weighs. But you can see the wax. Whoop, those darn bees. I don't know where the bees came from. So we got 6 containers poured. So there's a bee that got in there somehow. The wax is starting to harden a little bit. Very cool. It's working well. There's a learning curve as always. I'm loading it up again, and because there was so much honey in that last batch, almost like 3/4 of a 5-gallon bucket full, I'm going ahead and draining some of this old honey and water out of the bottom here, like this. That's what's coming out of the bottom valve. That lowers the level of everything in there down closer to here. So as this wax melts, the honey drops down. Maybe I won't have to drain off as much next time. About got it loaded. I've got 1 more bucket to put in there. I think I could get 1 more bucket in there and melt it down and try it again. It's later on in the afternoon today, and as you can see, the wax in here is basically melted. And over here we have our blocks of wax from this morning. I think they're pretty much done hardening. That's the first one we did there. See, it still had some water with honey in it, and it looks like they all had a little bit of water in them, which I don't know why, because we got down into that wax pretty far. This is the first one we poured. I think it had quite a bit of water under it still, so let's dump it out and see how it looks. See, it's a little bit dirty on the bottom, so that ought to be easy to kind of clean off. So that's a little bit dirty, but that was the first one. Probably should have drained a little more of the water out before we poured that one. Same thing, we got a little bit of dirt on the bottom, but just a tiny bit. Otherwise, a really clean wax. I think some of these are just where we've had bees that got in there, or maybe that was some dirt from the ground. That one's cleaner. That was further along in the pouring process. Almost no dirt. Easily scrape that off. Okay, that one's almost perfectly clean. Really almost no dirt at all on that one. See, just really pretty. This one might have been the last one we poured. It's still a little bit warm. Yeah, it's still pretty warm. See, that's a different color. It hasn't quite hardened all the way yet, but it's pretty clean as well. Beautiful wax, don't you think? That's got a little bit of dirt on it. Just a tiny bit though. You can easily scrape that off. And it's much easier if you want to scrape a little bit of dirt off. If you do it while it's still warm, it comes off easier. So I'm pretty excited about it. What do you think? So let me go get the scale and then we'll weigh these and see about what they weigh. I went ahead and scraped the bottom where there was a little bit of dirt on these. One of them was just too dirty. I put it back in the melter, but let's see how much they weigh. Got the scale zeroed out. 4 pounds. 4 pounds. Pretty consistent on those two. Oh, that stuff smells good. About 4.5 pounds. About 4.5 pounds. Yeah, close to 4 pounds. So we got 8 plus 9 plus 4, so that's about 21 pounds. So, and then we put 1 block in the melter to melt back down again. But I didn't have the melter actually filled completely up, I don't think, to capacity. The next one I think will have quite a bit more wax in it, but we'll find out. I turned the temperature down a little bit when we got home earlier, and it dropped too low. So there's a big chunk of wax down in there that still needs to be melted. So we're just gonna let this go ahead and melt for a while. And I'm not even sure if we'll do it today. We may wait until tomorrow morning to pour any more. It's super hot out here today, and this hot wax melter doesn't help matters any here in the utility shed. It's the next morning. I've already checked it, and it is melted all the way through. My tester here goes right through. I'm going to give it a little bit of time for it to settle down from where I checked it, and then we'll come back and we'll drain some wax. Now this is more like what I expected it to look like yesterday. Less slum on top, and when I was going down through, I could tell there was a layer of slum down below. I really believe that when we poured the wax yesterday, it wasn't completely melted, and that's one reason we kept getting the dirty wax. I think there was probably a big old chunk of wax right in the middle of the wax melter, and so everything had not had a chance to settle as it should. All right, it's had some time to settle now. Very little slum on top. So I think everything is going to go much smoother this time, I hope. Let's take a little bird's eye view here. Let's go to work. First thing I want to do once again is drain any honey from this middle valve. We want to get down to the wax. There we go. We can set it right there on the pallet. Now it's plugged some, so that can be a problem. So we're going to have to stick something up in there and release it. There we go. Has some slum caught in there, I think. Remember, I drained quite a bit of water out of here, so I'm hoping to get to the wax a little quicker today. Yep, we're in the clean wax now. Wow. I think that's all pretty much clean wax now. Let's put a little bit more. Go ahead and continue to use my system here with the strainer and the flour sack cloth here. Seemed to work well yesterday. I'm just hoping the wax is cleaner today. I think it's gonna be, because it's actually all melted. Oh yeah, well, we got a little dirt in there, but this is the very first part of this process. There we go, now it's breaking through. Yeah, this is gonna be much cleaner. I'm going to fill these containers up just a little bit more. I would like to get about 5 pounds in there. The ones yesterday were about 4 to 4.5. There's a line right here. I'm going to go up to that line, maybe just a little bit past. There we go. Yeah, it's much better today. Let's try another one here. Well, that's working a lot better today. Yeah, it's just draining so much cleaner and better. It's amazing what happens when the wax is actually melted. Set it right there. I'm going to let it harden. It went down to the level where we have slum in the filter here. So we're basically done with this process so far. So now we gotta move on to the next step. And we got some actually going into the bottom of this. So I'm gonna go ahead and, well, I've got it turned off, but I'm gonna go ahead and just, I think, dump this back in there. So we're down to the level where the slum is, you can see. And we pretty much drained all the wax out. We have 10 containers here. Each block, I imagine, is 5 to 6 pounds. And here, we're just going to let it set. I think it's cool when it starts to harden on the top like that. It's pretty neat. Isn't that cool? Okay, so now we're going to do the next step. We're going to try and get all the wax out of the slum and get it nice and clean. And this is a screen or a press that you use to do that. So this is where the lower drain comes in handy right here. This way, once again, we can lower the level of the water. We want to lower it down to where we're getting basically to where the slum kind of comes to the bottom. So we're going to drain all the water out for the most part. And it's going to be kind of nasty and dirty. It's got water mixed with honey mostly. It's going to take a couple of buckets worth, it looks like. We'll keep draining it until we start to see slum come out, I think is what we need to do. slum. We're getting pretty close. Yeah, there's a little slum coming out there. And a little bit more. Yeah, so the water's not really draining as fast, so I think we're down to the slum level. Because I have this thing on casters here, on these wheels, I can just push it to the door here, because we're going to need to use a water hose here in a minute. So now we have this slum right there. Everything down there pretty much is going to be slum. We use this screen right here, or I guess you call it a press, and put it down in here and just let it kind of settle over the top of the slum, so it's in there easily. So the slum is quite a bit below that. This press actually comes up a little higher than I thought it did. So I got the water hose here. I'll put it in here. And that cold water should pretty much congeal the slum underneath. I'm going to raise the water up to the level. We'll bring it on up here a few inches. Now what we're going to do is we're going to let this heat up, get really hot. We're just going to let it sit for a while. Just going to make sure everything's melted down, and what's going to happen is the slum will stay below, the wax will raise to the top of the water, and then we'll have a nice cake of wax on top of the water here. So we're going to see how this thing works. It's been several hours. I mean, it looks like it's melted. It looks like wax on the top. I'm just going to let it go for a while, just make sure all the wax kind of percolates up through that screen. Here are the first 5 blocks we did. Look at how pretty that wax is, man. It's perfect. Here's the wax we poured this morning. It's still pretty warm. It's kind of hot out here in the shed though, so I'm just going to leave it alone, make sure it hardens really good. This is from the original pouring of the wax yesterday. Isn't it pretty though? Yeah, it's still pretty warm. Let me show you what I did this morning that's kind of a learning curve type of a thing. If you'll remember, I drained the water in the second valve, first thing I did this morning. I drained quite a bit into this bucket right here. Well, as you can see, a fair amount of that ended up being wax. I didn't check it soon enough. I came home after going out and doing some stuff with the bees. It was early afternoon, and I looked in the bucket here, and I said, well, that wax looks like it's hardened pretty good. So I pushed down on one side of it, and it turned loose, and I went ahead and pushed it, and I realized pretty quickly there was a big thick block of wax like this. So I came back here behind the tree and I started to pour it out, and this stuff started pouring out right here. This wax right here it's kind of soft. It was not completely hardened, so it kind of turned into a mess. You can see there where it came out of the underside of the block of wax. So moral of the story is, let your wax harden completely before you try to do anything with it. All right, here's one of the blocks of wax from the most recent pour yesterday. How pretty that is, perfectly clean. Isn't that beautiful? Wow, I love it. Kind of wish I had more wax to pour. Just turned the wax melter off now, so we're gonna let it harden. See what kind of a cake of wax we end up with from the slum. I left the melter on for well over 24 hours. It was like in the morning time, I believe. We went until the next afternoon after I got home from work. Let's look in here and see what we have. Had plenty of time now to cool down. It's been about a day since I unplugged it. Looks like we have a nice cake of wax here. Let's pull this thing out. Pull it out like this with these handles is how I'm gonna do it. Drain all the water out of it. That's a big old, good grief. Looks like it worked. Let's see what it looks like. It looks like it's a little bit dirtier than I like, but okay, do we have slum on the bottom? We do have some slum on the bottom. The top looks pretty clean. The bottom, that's easily scrapable. Most of the slum did stay below, and we'll have to film that later. I may just run this through one more time. Overall, I think it worked pretty well. That's a pretty good sized block of wax. Let's just weigh it and see, out of curiosity, how much this thing weighs. I'm guessing 8 or 10 pounds, if not more. Let's sit over here on the scale. Oh my gosh. Almost 14 pounds of wax right there. So there was quite a bit of wax in that slum. We have 71 pounds of clean wax right there, plus 13 in this cake right here. So that's 84 so far. Plus we have that wax out there on the ground. I got to figure out how to clean it up and what to do with it. I'm gonna just think on this a little bit, figure out what I want to do with this cake of wax. I want to get it cleaner. So if you have any suggestions, just think about it, put it down in the comment below, and I'll come back and show you what I end up deciding to do with it. We have the dirty water, the slum and everything. You can see there's really no wax on top. So let me show you what we're going to do now. Now I think a lot of people take the cake and they just reprocess it with their next load to clean it up a little bit, but I've got a different plan. But let's get this water out of here and see what the slum looks like down below. First thing I'm going to do is remove the screen out of here. Yeah, wow, look at this. It looks like it's not really waxy, it's more kind of caked on there like dirt. So I'm going to set this outside and we'll get that cleaned up, just scrape it off I think. Now we're going to go to the bottom valve here, open it up, and drain all the water out of here. Might be some slum that comes out too, but that's okay. Just going to let it drain here. Kind of clogged up there looks like. Watch this, it's going to go shooting out. No, oh there, yeah, there's a big old clog. There we go. That old nasty water. Just gonna go dump this out behind the tree. And when you're draining the water at the end, it may just work better to take this out. We're about to the bottom of the tank here. We're just going to let it keep draining here and let it get as dry as possible in here. But look at the slum there. If this had wax in it, it would be really stuck together, but it's almost like dirt, which is what I expected. It's just really easy to break up. So I'm going to try and get this slum scooped out of here, and then we're going to try and see if we can get the rest of that wax cleaned up a little better. Here's the slum we got out of there. I'm still just amazed at how it just breaks up, just like dirt. It's kind of crazy. Very little, if any, wax at all in there. So I think that screen does a great job of getting the wax filtered out of that slum. If any of you guys know what to do with slum, let me know. I'm going to keep it in this bucket. I could just throw it out, but I'm going to keep it in here and see if you have any suggestions for me what to do with it. So here's the rest of the wax. This needs to be cleaned. This is the cake that came off after we used the screen to separate from the slum. See, it's a little dirty. It's not horrible. It's too dirty for me though. I want some clean wax. This, of course, is the wax I drained off the other morning when I drained too much off, and then I tried to break it out of the bucket too soon, and so you see all this right here was the wax that had not hardened yet. Kind of drained down amongst the pine straw back there behind the trees, so it's pretty dirty. I'm going to put the wax we still need to finish cleaning in the bottom of this tank here. You can see I've washed it out. It's pretty darn clean here. I broke the big cake into 4 pieces. We're going to go ahead and put it in there. Then I'm going to take this wax and put it in there, all of it. Get out of there, bees. I'll fly out of there. There we go. So now I'm going to put the screen over the top. This is going to hopefully help keep all the dirt and any slum that's left in that wax below. I'm going to put water in here. So my goal is to fill it up above the top valve over here on the side. I'm going to take it up 3 or 4 inches above at least. I think that's more than enough. The actual drain right here to that valve is right here. So you can see that's a good solid chute, probably 5 inches. That should provide plenty of water for the wax to gravitate up through the screen and sit on top of the water. You may hear a little rain dripping on the top of the shed. Finally, we have some rain. So I've let this go for quite a while now. It is completely melted. We're just gonna run everything that's above this second drain through a filter. And when it gets to the wax, it'll get to the wax. And I think we'll be able to end up with getting the rest of the wax out of here nice and clean. So I anticipate there being mostly water the first little bit coming out. I expect there to be some dirt in it for a little while here. Yeah, that's pretty much just water so far. Once again, pretty much water. So we got 3 containers basically full of water. Now we're getting into some wax. See how it turned yellow? There we go. I'm gonna have to get a new strainer cloth. Got a clean cloth. Now we're gonna see what happens. There we go. We definitely have some dirt in here, so we're at the bottom of the wax, I think. Not much, just a little bit of debris. Takes a while for it to drain through, doesn't it? Beautiful golden wax, look at that. Awesome. Why it's so slow? So that debris just got it clogged up a little bit. I have to get another towel. It's kind of a little pain. We're into the pretty wax now though. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to continue to pour the wax until we get to the very end. Okay, as you can see, we're getting down to the end here. And so I've just taken the cloth out and I took the elbow joint off of here, and I'm just going to run the rest of it through this screen. There will probably be a little bit of dirt that gets in there, but we can just scrape it off the bottom. But it's just been really slow with the towel. So I'm going to run it straight through this strainer here and just see if we can get the rest of it in there. There is some debris definitely going in there, but we got to get it. We got to get this finished up. Now, theoretically, the debris should all go to the bottom. This is not going to be very much. I think we're just about to the end. If this block isn't perfectly clean, that's okay. I could use it to re-wax frames, or I can scrape the debris off the bottom. Just going to let it go until it completely stops draining out. And then I believe, theoretically, we should have all the wax processed. So here are the final results of today's pour. We got this much right here, a nice little block there. These are the first 5 we poured right here. You see there's a thin layer on here. All of them have a real thin little layer of wax on them, but mostly water. So you can see I filled the tank all the way up. This is the wax that was left. It's gonna be a real thin cake, I think, when it's done. I'm gonna let this melt down one more time, then pull whatever's left off of there once it hardens, and then try and get the tank cleaned up, and we'll be done. After letting it melt back down again and harden, this is what we ended up with, a nice cake here, probably about a 1/2 inch thick. Not super dirty, it's a little bit odd looking. It's kind of white on the bottom. I'm not sure if that's just from the hot water sitting on the bottom. Let's weigh it and see how much it weighs here. It's about 3.5 to 4 pounds. See, we got just pretty much water in here is all that's left. We got the wax out of it. There's a little bit of wax residue on the edges of the tank here. I'm gonna heat it up one more time, pretty hot. Let all this wax melt off the edges into the water. Then we'll drain the water and store it. That smells so good. We ended up with 91 pounds of beautiful beeswax with this Thorne manufacturing wax melter. Super excited about it. We went through some challenges that we had. I tried to include everything that we ran into with this process, so hopefully it'll help you if you decide to get one of these things to prevent some of the problems that I had. Overall, well pleased. I think it's a great piece of equipment. I look forward to using it for many years to come. If you're a smaller beekeeper, maybe don't have very much beeswax to process, then you can use whatever method you want. I've used the crock pot method and the solar wax melter method in the past with good success, and I'll put links to those videos down below. Hope this helps. Catch y'all next time.